we've actually got some stuff to talk about for Sam Houston football. We are within 10 days of the spring game. Dave Campbell's visited Huntsville. What did reporter Mike Craven find, and do I agree with what he had to say and report? That's what you all want to know. Plus, LaTech. How does the LaTech move, the $8 million move out of Conference USA, affect Sam Houston football? Get in, sound off, have a take, don't suck. The Bearkat Bites podcast is live. I am Fobbs, the writer and the creator of Sam Houston, the Bearkat Bites media empire, such as it is. We're the only independent media outlet covering Sam Houston football year-round. You can find the links in the description. If you'd like to subscribe to the weekly newsletter, it's free. If you'd like to subscribe here, it is free. How about that? How about that? Okay, so we've got a few things to get into today. We've got a couple of things that we want to talk about. First of all, you can click the link in the description there. Thank you all for those who have purchased the Cat's Coffee. A few of you have done that. It's some of that spike, some of that good stuff, isn't it? It's some of that good, you know. After having to watch a 2-win team last year, we need some of that special Cat's Coffee, right? Why don't you get on there and buy us one? And we appreciate the support that you give us. Oh, we're going to start off with Dave Campbell's Texas Football, the great magazine that gets released every July. It gets bigger and bigger the more high schools they open in this crazy state of Texas. They do a lot of college coverage. They sent out reporter Mike Craven to see what he can find out about the Bearkats. Let me see if I can turn this off. Bear with me 1 second. Let me turn off this dryer. Oh, let's turn off the dryer. Let's turn it off. There we go. All right, there's the dog. All right, there's that. Sorry about that, guys. Do you like the game chair? Do you like the game chair there? Sorry about that. A couple of technical difficulties going here around the house. Whoo! But Dave Campbell got to go in and visit and talk with Phil Longo and see what was going on with the program. Let me say something about Dave Campbell's coverage. Let me say something about Mike Craven. I know you all have a fun and at times slightly contentious, some of you burners have that type of relationship with Mike Craven. I will say this in the man's defense. I will say this in Dave Campbell's football defense. And I learned this when I was covering all sports, when I had to cover a bunch, you know, I was in North Carolina, I had to cover like 8 different counties, and all the little communities had little high schools, and they all had little sports. And you were expected to know as much as you could. And you know what happens when you're in that situation? It's pretty much impossible to know as much as you can. It just doesn't happen. It's not realistic. There's too many teams. Same thing with Dave Campbell's, right? I mean, they don't have a ton of, it's not a huge statewide staff where they just go out and sprinkle out into the world. It's about what, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. And they got to cover all of the football that's happening around here, right? I mean, they let go and release the great Corey Hogue, who's a friend of the show, you know, so they're even smaller now. Our good fellow colleague Ishmael, who writes for Dallas Morning News now. So there's a lot of people that aren't even there anymore. And it's being whispered in hushed backgrounds, that hushed tones, that they're going to that they are looking at maybe reducing or shuttering some of the college football coverage there with Dave Campbell. So with all that said, if some of the reporting is not as deep as it should be, that's why. I didn't think anything that he said was inaccurate. I didn't think anything that Mike Craven reported on, I don't think there's anything that didn't line up with what I saw. And we're going to go in deeper in that in tomorrow's newsletter. So go ahead and subscribe to that. But I didn't see anything that didn't line up with what my observations and with my sources and resources are hearing. I did find something interesting that Landon Locke came to the team and came to Phil Longo and wanted to be the starter. He wanted to take off his red shirt in order to help the team. right? And it did help for one game. It helped for one game that they beat Delaware, remember? But he was coming off an injury, so that's always tough when you're a quarterback. He, you know, and you're hearing the standard stuff, the game's slowing down for him, and it makes more sense. You know, things that should happen and progress as you go to your true sophomore year, right? So that's pretty good. That's pretty good to hear. I was not aware of that story. You know, how he wanted to. He wanted that action. He wanted to do this. Phil Longo also said that it was clear that Landon Locke was the best quarterback on the team last year. So that kind of tracks with what a lot of you all wanted. You guys wanted Landon Locke in there from day one, but they were trying to keep the red shirt. They were trying to keep the red shirt on him. Didn't do that. And if you didn't keep the red shirt on him, maybe they should have played him earlier. But, you know, he's recovering from an injury. He's got to get back from that. That's what led to that quarterback carousel controversy of last year. When you had Hunter Watson and Bauer and all these other people and Landon Locke. A DJ Bailey sighting or two was in there, right? So there was that. You know, it tracks. It all makes sense. What do you all think about that? What do you think about that story that Phil Longo knew from day one last year, pretty much, that Landon Locke was his best option and that it was just this long, winding path for him to become the clear starter now? He also said that the backup quarterback, don't count out the high schoolers. Mason Holtzclaw and those guys. They will arrive in the summer, but they've been peppering in on campus here and there. Doesn't bode well for you DJ Bailey truthers. And I know you all are still lurking out there. I know you DJ Bailey truthers are still lurking out there, okay? You're still out there. Shout out to you. No. Oh, man. And I'm sure DJ Bailey, for all we know, he could be a great person, great human being. You know, probably takes care of puppies and stuff and walks old ladies across the street. It's fine. For the purposes of this exercise, though, finding the best quarterbacks in the room and ranking them in that order, as far as the depth chart, no. Longo's talking about the freshmen. He doesn't mind throwing out young guys out there. If you can play and you're confident, he'll put you out there. Longo also talked about how the budget increased. Let me go back here. Longo also talked about how the budget increased for Sam Houston. He admitted that it's still not what it needs to be, but it is much more. It is competitive in CUSA. To me, competitive means lower half, upper lower half. So what? After LaTech's departure, what does that mean? I think there's 10 teams left. Maybe they rank number 6.5. Maybe on the right day they're 6, somewhere 7, 6, 7. You know how the kids do. That's about where Sam Houston's budget is. 6, 7, which is a lot better than last year because they admitted that because they were building the stadium, the money went there. They were really trying to build this thing. They put up to the tune of $80 million into this. And a lot of it went to building the new stadium, new Bowers. You know, you're an FCS team, you gotta act like it. And it costs money to act like, you're an FBS team. You're an FBS team. You're not an FCS team anymore. So you got to act like it. You got to walk the walk. And they're slowly building that up, right? There's finally a budget that is competitive. So that's what leads to that. One more thought on the quarterback, the running back position. Smith Mack, probably the backup to Coco Brown. Depending on how the offensive line plays, I would say Alton McCaskill can do well. He's somebody to me that needs the O-line to play solids, like really well. You know, not to say that he sucks, but you saw the few things Coco Brown was able to do behind an offensive line that really did not have its act together the previous last year, right? So that's why I would say Coco Brown's probably my bell cow. And you got these other two guys. You got Avion Smith Mack, and you got Alton McCaskill there as well. So that's what I would think. And then he talked a little about the defense. Freddie Autry-Lindsay was not available to speak. I would hope that he's out recruiting for next year. You know, he's out doing some other stuff. Him and the defensive staff there. But Longo wasn't. He mentioned Tyler Bailey at safety, who had transferred over, who had moved over there from offense last year. He mentioned D Ford, linebacker, who I like. He really came on his freshman year. I like D Ford. I really like that D Ford, right? He made some plays last year. He was one of the few embers of hope in a season of despair last season. So, other than that, he said they're still working out the secondary depth chart. They're still working out the defensive line depth chart. Does this mean it's going to be bad? Does it mean it's going to suck? That statement I said, that is not the evaluation that I'll have. I need to see the spring game to have a further evaluation, okay? Once I see the spring game, then I can begin to evaluate further, okay? We'll do that a week from Saturday. We'll be out there at Bauer Stadium. But for right now, pick your favorite defender. Pick your favorite guy. Who do you like along the defensive line? Who do you like among the linebackers? I'm taking D Ford. I'm still going to go with Dylan Frazier from last year. I'm going to go with those two guys. I'll go with some oldies but goodies. I think the new guys that they brought in, they're bigger and stronger, so they're definitely going to help them provide a boost. But the depth chart isn't set yet, which is kind of a little nervous. That, anytime you hear that things aren't quite materializing, that kind of means that no one's really separating themselves. Now, maybe there's a world in which the rising tide has lifted everyone, and everyone is just getting mad, just better. Usually it means that no one's separating themselves, and it's a little, at worst, eyebrow raising, right? So we'll see. We'll see. What I can say, what do you all think of the defense, by the way? What do you all think? I mean, what we've heard is reports and whispers. Now we have something concrete from Longo. We can react to that. Other than Tyler Bailey, other than D Ford, one or two others, he simply said Jace Arnold was a name thrown out there because he was there last year, but they're still working out the depth chart where people are going to be. What do y'all think about that? What about these offensive assistants? Now, there's something that I do think Mike Craven missed in his reporting. It is the fact that there is a new offensive line coach in Jack Bicknell, whatever, however you say it. I'll have to ask him how you say it on Saturday. And then you had and then Keon Williams, the wide receivers coach. Now, let me tell you something about Keon Williams and what this has to do with the new look wide receiver room with those new faces and bigger targets on the outside. He did not begin that job until late summer. Remember, the previous receivers coach went on to the high school ranks. He just left, right? So they had to scramble and find somebody. So he brought Keon Williams in late. And as a result of that, they weren't, able to really mesh, really coalesce with the new coach. Reports are that Keon's a good guy. They like him, but there were some growing pains. I mean, he's a first-year position coach that started late. So there are a lot of growing pains there with him and the receivers. I mean, and it showed on the field. But with a full offseason, perhaps it looks a bit different. He's got Caleb Mitchell out there, big targets out there, wide receiver now. There's a great mix there in the room. Grady O'Neal is a name that keeps coming up as somebody that's reliable. Like Grady O'Neal? Like, is Grady O'Neal just beasting in practice? And the same goes for the offensive line with Jack Bicknell, who's come over. He brings Power 4 experience. He's a former offensive line coach in West Virginia. You're overhauling your offensive line. Complete overhaul up front. You got to protect Landon Locke. So this seems like the guy that can kind of whip them into shape. It's got to happen quickly. They haven't played before. You usually want an offensive line that's played together, that meshes. So in this case, that process has to be sped up a little bit through the spring and the summer. Definitely when they get into fall camp in a few months, right? On the other side of this year. So we'll take a look at that. We'll have to take a look at that and see what's going on. So I don't think Mike Craven, that was kind of missed in his evaluation. What does it mean to have a a receivers coach that's been there a full year now, the impact of Jack Bignell. These are going to be things to look for when evaluating this program, right? And something I want to know is who's calling the plays? Something I want to know is who's calling the plays? Is it still going to be Longo calling them? Or is somebody else going to get to do that? What does that look like? What does that look like for Sam Houston? Is it going to be Zach Patterson? Longo said last year that he would be calling the plays, and little by little, maybe Patterson gets a little bit of play calling duties. I wonder where that stands. I do wonder where that stands. I was looking forward to reading that in Craven's reporting, but again, that's some of that deeper stuff that outlets like here will tell you. Am I telling you to throw Craven's reporting in the garbage? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that's something that I do want to know about, and we're going to ask about that a week from Saturday. Okay. All right, you guys have wanted to know as we change things up here. We change up the subjects. What do we think about LaTech? Now, the banner there says LaTech's $8 million departure. They're going to pay more than that to Conference USA to get out of this conference, to not have to see them again. They're going to pay a lot more than that total that you see right there. Okay. So that's gonna be a thing. That's gonna be a thing. Conference USA strong arming fools, man. Woo! You know what? People say Conference USA low budget, whatever. Man, they clearly got a big budget for some lawyers. Because UTEP left, they took $8 million for them. LaTech's leaving, and they're leaving early, so they're taking more than $8 million from them. By the way, the teams that left in 2023, UAB and Rice, all these other teams, when they left for the American, they didn't have to pay more than $3 million. So Conference USA is getting that money. They are getting that money. Strong arming fools. Strong arming. Woo! So, I mean, that's interesting. That's very interesting. And LaTech's got to pay more to go to the Sun Belt. So, man, I guess they're really banking on that rivalry with ULM, just over to the east of them. I guess they're banking big on that rivalry. What do y'all think about that? Man, all they had to do is just kind of play this the right way, and they probably could have gotten out of this paying less. But anytime you let the lawyers get involved, you're playing a dangerous game. You're playing a dangerous game, and LaTech lost that one. Or maybe they didn't, because like I said, maybe ULM, that ULM rivalry is just going to be the biggest thing in northern Louisiana, up in that higher boot part. That maybe that's going to be the best thing since sliced bread. I don't know. So what does that mean? What does that leave Conference USA? Do they backfill? Because they've only got 10 teams now. We're hearing that Sam Houston's going to have an adjusted schedule. The schedule's going to change for Sam Houston. We're hearing that in hushed whispers. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for that now that this entire LaTech debacle is done, right? So I wonder, how do they backfill? Sacramento State's off the board. That would have been a fun, and this merry band of misfits that is Conference USA, why not throw Sac State in there? Why the hell not? That would have been fun to do and see. But instead, they are the far most Western team of the MAC conference. And so North Dakota State, those were the biggest pieces North Dakota State was definitely the biggest piece that came off the board. Sac State, long term, it's a little wobbly. We're going to talk to me about them during this next phase of conference realignment. Talk to me about them in about 4 or 5 years, okay? Really in about 3.5, because that's when they're going to start changing stuff, right? Because if it's 2031, 3029, it's about 3.5 years. They got to do it 2 years ahead. So talk to me about that then. But yeah, who do they backfill with? And that kind of dovetails into my next point here. What does that mean for Sam Houston's? Will they be getting some new rivals? Because those new, if they backfill, candidates could include Abilene Christian, ACU, could include Tarleton State, maybe some more Texas teams. There's not many pieces left on the board. There's not many pieces left. And if you're Conference USA, you're going to be filling in from FCS. You're going to be filling in from the smaller ranks. Just be honest, right? You are the doorstep to big-time college football. Embrace it. To me, it looks like one of those two teams. But if you're Tarleton State, if you're Abilene Christian, do you hold out for the Mountain West? Do you hold out? Texas State's going to the Pac-12. Do you wait for something like that? What do you do if you're them? Maybe you jump to Conference USA, see what happens. Sam Houston definitely making more money in CUSA than they were playing at playing those playoff games. As great as they were, those FCS playoff games were not making money. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll see what happens. Just a lot of good stuff happening. A lot of interesting stuff happening. Let's put it that way. But anyway, let me go ahead and grab some food tonight. You guys be safe. We're going to see you all next week. We're going to be leading into the spring game. That's what we're going to talk about. You all be safe. Take care. All college football is good college football. See you next time.